What's up, Eco Nerdlings? In this podcast, we're going to be discussing human impacts on the terrestrial biomes that you just got through learning about. So we're going to be looking at the desert biomes, forest biomes, to see what happens when humans get involved. So human activities have damaged or disturbed more than half of the world's terrestrial biomes and ecosystems. We've had a very large, specific, harmful effect on the world's deserts, grasslands, forests, as well as our mountains. So in the desert, we've started having these large desert cities popped up. Think of Dubai. There's not a lot of natural water sources and things like that occurring, so we're having to basically strip the land around them for all of these resources. And because of that, we have soil destruction by off-road vehicles building all of the buildings and things like that that are getting put up. We have soil salinization from irrigation. That means that we're adding a lot of salt into the soil, which is going to make the soil very, very uninhabitable for plants that we want to grow in the future. We have a very large depletion of groundwater, especially in our deserts where water is already scarce. Sucking all of that water out of the ground systems is going to deplete us of all of the natural water that was in that ecosystem to begin with. And then we have land disturbance and pollution from mineral extraction. So we come in and we want to mine different types of minerals, and when we do so, not only are we disrupting the land, but we're going to start polluting it as well. In the grasslands, we're converting a lot of them into cropland for ourselves instead of letting it have the natural types of grasses and shrubs that occur there. When we do that, we're releasing carbon dioxide to the atmosphere from the grassland burning, and we're overgrazing it with our livestock. So we'll come around, we'll specifically set fires to it, we'll clear the land, we'll plant the type of crops we want, and sometimes those will be crops for ourselves, or we'll turn it into an area for our livestock to graze. We also have oil production and off-road vehicles and Arctic tundra areas in the grasslands that are drastically affecting those ecosystems. In our forests, we have clear cutting for agricultural, livestock grazing, timber, and urban development. So basically, we're coming through, chopping all of the trees down, and we're using them to build our homes. We're clearing the land and putting our livestock or crops that we want to grow there. And some of the effects are quite devastating. One of the effects that we talked about earlier in one of a different podcasts was in China, when all of the farmers basically clear cut all of these trees on a mountainside. And when they did that and it rained, they got huge floods in their town because all of the trees that used to soak up the water were no longer there. And in turn, it caused a huge flood because of the degradation that we caused to that environment. We also have conversion of diverse forests into tree plantations, so we specifically have only one type or two types of trees that we're going to use. Maybe for Christmas trees, so we're only going to grow Douglas fir trees here, or something like that. And then we also have damage from off-road vehicles in the forest areas, as well as pollution of forest streams from the different types of vehicles and pollutants that we're putting into the area that seep into the soil, and eventually those will get washed into the streams and the rivers, and at some point they'll typically wind up in the ocean food chains and food webs. So in our mountains, again, we have agricultural uses coming into play where we're taking a lot of the trees, we're extracting them, using them as timber to build our homes and things like that. We also have a lot of mineral mining where we come in, we damage the area around it, we're making all of these holes, we're polluting the area, and then we're stripping it. And we also have an increase in tourism, which anytime we bring humans in, you're also going to see an increase in the pollution of the area. Whether it's chemical or whether it's just trash, things like that are always going to come in when you bring more people into that area. It also has an increased ultraviolet radiation from ozone depletion of all of the different types of gases that we're putting into our atmosphere. And the soil is very damaged from off-road vehicles coming in as well. We have lots of developments that are coming in, and habitat destruction is one of the worst things that's going on, because when we come into an area and we're taking all of the trees and stuff like that, not only are we just taking that specific tree, we're ruining habitats for many different animals, and we're basically taking away all of their homes, whether it's animals or different types of plant life. So we're disrupting the natural order of things when we come in and we're taking or clearing such drastic amounts of forests. So in a previous podcast, we talked about the different types of roles that species play in environments. So some of those roles are the native species, The non-native species, which we can also call invasive species. We have the indicator species, keystone species, and then we also have the foundation species. And all of those play different ecological roles, or they hold different niches within that environment. So the native species are the ones that occur there naturally and have been there for a very, very long time. Our non-native species are the ones that migrate in, or they're deliberately or accidentally introduced into a community. And sometimes the effects of that are quite devastating to that community. So an example of that would be an importation of a species such as the Chinese chestnut. The Chinese chestnut tree had a fungus that actually spread and virtually eliminated the entire American population of chestnut trees. We have introduced or invasive species. They can displace the native species in their local environments, and they lower the biodiversity of those environments as well. Typically, the invasive species can adapt much quicker than the native species to their local habitats, and they also contribute to habitat fragmentation, and typically they're an R-selected species, meaning that they can reproduce very, very quickly, and a lot of times they'll outnumber the native species in that area. We also have hunting that's becoming a problem. Overhunting, taking out the top predators, is one of the bigger concerns of environmentalists, because when we take out the top predators, we're going to disrupt the natural order of things, and you're going to start seeing some populations expand exponentially that shouldn't, because the thing or the animal that's keeping those populations in check is now being taken out by humans. So that's one of the problems that you see coming into play as well. We also have a lot of pollution that we've been contributing, especially after the Industrial Revolution has occurred, and we have all of our plants and everything like that. We're releasing lots of chlorofluorocarbons into the atmosphere, carbon dioxide, as well as oil spills. Now, I want to say it was probably in the 90s, way back when I was in high school. Chlorofluorocarbons were a huge deal, and they came and put up basically a law, and they started trying to decrease the amount of chlorofluorocarbons that they put in things. But it used to be very common, found in a lot of aerosol sprays like hairspray and things like that. They have tried to decrease their usage of that as well, though. We also have agricultural things coming into play, the cut and burn techniques, and we have a huge loss and destruction of habitat for all of the different animals in those areas, as well as different types of plant life. Now, there are things we can do to help out. And humans, even though we have a lot of devastating effects to the environment, there are a lot of people out there that really do truly care about the environment and are trying to give back. So we are reclaiming the environment for Mother Earth in a way. So we have a process called reclamation, and that's when we return native vegetation to an area that's been mined or disturbed by human use. And it can be done by replanting native species, by cleaning up pollution that we've added into that environment, by setting different types of regulations and laws that prevent that from happening again in that area, or any other activity that's designed to actually help or fix the problem that we destroyed. So habitat restoration, this is kind of an area right here where we're trying to build what was ruined. A lot of times you see that in places where oil spills have occurred. So recently we had a pretty large oil spill in the Gulf right around Galveston area here. And we had a lot of animal life that got disrupted and disturbed. And so when we have oil spills, a lot of animals get coated with oil. But you also see a lot of people coming in to help out and, you know, washing the animals off with the liquid soap and everything like that to help get the oil off of them. But it doesn't change the fact that we're the ones in the first place that caused this to happen. So that's something that your generation is also going to have to focus on, is how are we going to prevent accidents like this from happening in the future? And what are we going to do about it when those accidents do occur? How could we better handle those? Well, I hope that was informational for you guys and you learned a little bit about what we do that negatively impacts the environment, as well as some of the things that you might be able to do to help get the environment back to a more stable level. Well, this is the Queen Nerdling signing off for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay nerdy till next time.